Good evening. I am Scott Sackett. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you're new to my YouTube channel, I review art supplies, art books, comic books, that sort of thing. Old school comic book fan, artist, so on and so forth. Anyway, today I wanted to review this. I just got this in the mail the other day. This is Paul Smith's Uncanny X-Men Artist Edition. This is put out by IDW. Recently, Diamond has filed Chapter 11, I believe it's 11, of bankruptcy. Diamond is the main distributor for comic books in North America. And the reason why I say that is because it came out who they owed money to. One of the companies they owed a lot of money to was IDW. This book came out in December. I'd kind of went back and forth on whether I wanted to order or not. When I saw that, I decided I would order it because if IDW, and I'm not predicting this, I'm certainly not wishing this, but if IDW were to come into financial trouble, they might stop production of Artist Edition. So I would say first, if you're a fan of the Artist Edition, then maybe you should consider buying one if there's one that you were waiting on or whatever. I know they just put a couple of them on sale. This was not one of them that was on sale, but I did get a decent deal on it. So this is, well, first, if you're unfamiliar with the Artist Editions, that's what this is, Artist Edition. What it does is it reproduces original comic art at actual drawn size. Comic books are roughly 8 by 10, I think, printed size. The actual production size, the size of the pages are generally drawn at, is 8.5 by 11. You can see this is a big book. This is, probably 18 by 12. So it has the full-size art. These tend to be all over the place in terms of how much I like them or don't like them. I'm a big John Byrne fan. I have 3 of John Byrne's. To me, what makes or breaks an Artist Edition is what you're seeing when you look at the original pages. I love John Byrne's X-Men art, but his X-Men Artist Edition, Terry Austin's such a clean inker that there was no pencil lines, blue lines, or that sort of thing. Not a lot of white out, so you can't tell a lot. This one kind of falls in the middle range. It's funny, John Byrne's Fantastic Four Artist Edition, John Byrne inked those pages himself, and you can see a lot of lines that he didn't erase and that sort of thing. But anyway, this is Paul Smith. Paul Smith was an artist that came onto the X-Men book after John Byrne left, which is when I became a fan, was John Byrne was drawing it. Then Dave Cockrum came back for a while. As a youth, I did not appreciate Dave Cockrum's art as much as I do now, but when Paul Smith came along, I really liked it. And so when I saw this was coming out, I wanted to get it. Now, this covers, so if you have this is Essential X-Men Volume 4, and I'm sure there is an epic, but this is what I have, and this is a lot of the same pages. It's just smaller. Now I got the originals when they came out, and there's a trade of most of this stuff, and I think there's an epic out of that. But anyway, so let me flip through the pages. That's probably why you're here. It's always a nice, fly leaf image. Mine was a little damaged in shipping, but it came in a huge box. I did not get it I got it from In Stock Trades, got a good deal. It came in 3 boxes. These always ship in a box that the publisher puts them in. It was in a second box, and it was in a bigger box. The box was probably, no exaggeration, 3 by 3 foot square, and maybe, 6 inches deep. Very heavily padded. This was a printing thing. This happened at the publisher. The box wasn't damaged or anything like that. So what this has in it, it has Paul Smith did Uncanny X-Men 165 through 175. He did Marvel Fanfare number 4. There's a couple foldouts. There's the X-Men Alpha Flight number 1, some pages from that. X-Men Alpha Flight number 2. X-Men Unlimited 50. X-Men First Class Special. First Class Special number 1. First Class 6. And Heroes Hotline. Okay, I'm going to talk about that as I go through, but I want to flip through some of the pages. There's an introduction by Louise Simonson, which is great. She was there. This is this first cover, Storm being possessed by the Brood. When I was a kid, I hated the Brood. I just didn't like. I didn't like the X-Men in space, and here we start off there in space. but the art is fantastic. I like the art. The art, when I see this art, I realize why he exploded at Marvel. He was not a classically trained artist. He'd worked for Ralph Bashki, the animator, and he worked on Lord of the Rings. He worked on American Pop. Then somehow he got into comics. There's a Wizard magazine interview with Paul Smith, and he says, I got into comics because I saw that BMW had a new motorcycle out, some kind of new design, an engine design or something. He said, I really wanted one. And so he said, I drew X-Men until I had enough money to buy the motorcycle. So anyway, but these pages are gorgeous. And I have seen all this stuff. I saw it as a kid. I got like I said, the Essential up there. But seeing it at actual size is just phenomenal. Some of the details and stuff just at a reduced down size got lost. It's interesting. Comic artists tend to some of them, like the size they work at and the size is published, they look better at different sizes. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think that's all art. And this stuff is phenomenal. Now, one of my complaints has always been when he shrunk down, some of these real thin lines get really thin. But this stuff is beautiful. Oh, classic splash page there. Professor Xavier is a jerk. I see this page and I can see immediately it's like her jacket's blue, pink, and white. Very classic thing. I'm convinced, I reviewed this on a podcast with a friend of mine Friday, and I said, I'm convinced that this splash page and her telling Professor Xavier's a jerk and her going off is what kind of put her on the map. I know that's not completely true. There are a lot of things done with the character, and I'll talk about some of that later. At some point she gets the dragon. Look at this beautiful scenery. Paul Smith did it. He was a little bit different than Dave Cockrum and John Byrne before him, and how he rendered things. It was more open, more animated looking. But it was comics are kind of funny because sometimes there's a lot of times there's a style that's kind of almost like a house style that everybody adheres to, and then occasionally somebody will come along and really come up with something a little bit different that really speaks to people. Yeah. Oh, classic cover there. X-Men. Angel being hooked. The hook through his wing. They clipped his wings so he couldn't fly. This page doesn't have any lettering. This was back when comics were lettered, and you'll see this will change on some of the later stuff he does. But look at this, man. I think the inker on all this was Bob Wyckoff, I believe. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name, but I think he inked most of Paul Smith's work. Just beautiful work. Now, one of my disappointments is there's not a lot of stray lines or pencil marks. For the most part, the inking is fairly clean. There's some white out. It's interesting to see the pages. This page looks like it's never been exposed to the light. It's almost solid white, whereas this one's yellowed. Some of them are really yellow. This is old stuff. This was in the early 80s. I don't like to think about it, but that was a long time ago. Oh man, I remember this. Wolverine getting married. This came out of the Wolverine miniseries. It was written by Frank Miller, drawn by Frank Miller, written by Chris Claremont. I read that on a family trip. I was at a farm in Michigan for the summer when my grandmother lived up in Michigan, and I went to the store and they had I think I'd bought the first issue and taken it up there with me, and I got the last 3 I think while I was up there. Could be mistaken, but I remember reading it. That and the Blade Runner magazine. When I was on a farm, what am I going to do on a farm but read comic books? Again, he gave Paul Smith. It was interesting. His characters are all on model, but they're kind of their own unique look. Which is really what you want if you're a comic book artist. You don't necessarily want to ape somebody else necessarily, but you want to find your own style, but you still want to be recognizable. And he didn't do a lot of like overly rendered backgrounds like like John Byrne is kind of known for, but he definitely got some cool stuff. I love that effect. Hang on just a second. Okay. Yep. Okay, we're going. Sorry about that. I got a phone call. Had to check and see. Anyway, I love this page with the Zipatone and the Silver Samurai. Here's Wolverine in Japan. This Wolverine's been in Japan. It's almost become like a cliche now. C.B. Cebulski at one point was talking about if you're doing something for Marvel, don't do Wolverine in Japan. It's a cliche. But this was back when it wasn't a cliche. It was a thing. Kind of almost sprung out of the when the X-Men were in Japan and Wolverine could read Japanese, and the other X-Men were astonished that Wolverine could read Japanese. And he said, "Well, we didn't know you could read Japanese." He said, "You never asked." Again, Markiko. There will be no wedding because Gaijin, you are not worthy. Kitty Pryde with the dragon, Lockheed, reading a Star Wars comic. Like I said, the actual size pages are phenomenal. I mean, they look much better than what's in the actual printed comic, in my opinion. Just really cool. Really, really cool to see all this. And one of the things about this is it does not, and early on in the artist edition, they would put complete stories in there. But what's happened is some of these pages are so old that they can't get the complete stories. And the John Byrne X-Men book did not have complete stories. The good thing about this one is it's got pages from every issue of Paul Smith's run. So there's a little bit of everything. Okay, so this is 2 pages from Marvel Fanfare. This was the second thing that Paul Smith did for Marvel. He did a story in Marvel Fanfare #1, and then he did this, and it was in Marvel Fanfare #4. It was the 4th part of a 4-part series. The first part was drawn by Michael Golden. This has been collected as a small trade, this story. But I almost like the style he's using here. I don't know, where he's trying to go in and do a little more rendering than the rest of it, or than the rest of the X-Men stuff than on his X-Men book. Now, unfortunately, it's all X-Men. He did some Doctor Strange that was pretty phenomenal too. Here's a fold out. This is a cover from. Oh no, this is a cover of Marvel Fanfare #4, and then this fold out, which you probably can't see the whole thing, is from the X-Men and Alpha Flight book. So that's what this goes into. X-Men and Alpha Flight #1. He did 1 and 2. So this has been collected as this X-Men: The Asgardian Wars. I don't know if this is currently available. Art Adams did part of it. You can see Art Adams there. And then Paul Smith did the first part, then Art Adams did the first part, or the second part. And I don't know how it came out. I guess it came out as 4 issues, but I'm not sure if it was intended for it to all be collected. But apparently it's been collected into that trade, the Asgardian Wars, if you're looking for it. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure if it's available now. And again, this is a little more, his style's evolved a little bit from his X-Men book. I think this was a few years after that. Again, cool stuff. This and I got this along. Oh, there's the cover of the #2. See, so this was a limited series, but I think they did the sequel, and that's what's in that trade. And the sequel was drawn, like I said, by Art Adams. I completely missed this stuff when I was reading. I was not reading comics at this time this came out. and I'm going to buzz through that just a little bit. I want to get us to a point. Okay, this is what I really wanted to share. So this is from Uncanny, or I'm sorry, not Uncanny, X-Men Unlimited. They did in the 2000s. Marvel did a series called X-Men Unlimited. It was different creators doing an X-Men book. So this is every page of the story. It's not a letter to the story, but look how different his style is. This is such a brushy, dark style, and I love it. This is probably some of my favorite stuff of his. Just some cool. I mean, look at that. Look at that panel, Wolverine there. That's awesome. Very expressionistic, very dark. Like I said, and I'm not sure who inked that. I think he inked this himself. I love that, and you can see he's drawn blue line under this. That's what leads me to think he inked it and not Bob Wycat, because you could see a lot of the construction lines on the buildings and stuff with a red pencil on that page. Their page is blue. And again, I think he penciled it loosely in like red in this case, and then inked over the loose layouts. You can kind of see how the arm is constructed there. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. This panel's awesome. You know, I mean, that is really, really, really cool. But it's like I said, it's X-Men Unlimited 50. You could probably find it in the back issue bin. It's well worth seeking out, I think. It's probably one of my favorite things of his. His Doctor Strange stuff is pretty good. And I picked up the Doctor Strange stuff just recently for a couple bucks an issue. It's not real expensive, even though it's older. I don't know if that was published in there. This was a single. I've got it somewhere, but it was cool to have this because I don't have this anywhere else. Okay, and so this is the end. It's about this cursed sword. He throws it in the melting, what you call it, melting steel or whatever. Very Terminator 2 like. This is X-Men First Class Special number 1. I remember when we did this, I was like, holy cow, Paul Smith's doing an X-Men First Class, which was a series I liked. It was penciled by Robert Cruz. No, Cruz. I forget his first name. Anyway, and I liked it. It had kind of a different look. And again, he's gone to more of an open look, but this is maybe even more so than on his original X-Men run, but I really like it. And I think this has every page for that story. So I'm not sure if Paul Smith has them or somebody bought them. There's a Facebook group for Paul Smith that has like a checklist, and people are always putting stuff on there. Yeah, I think this is only a 14-page story. I think there's everything in here. This is from, I forget. I said it earlier. From a later, this is from X-Men First Class number 6. A little bit different look than even the one he did for the special, and then this was a fanzine thing he did. But that's the one thing that is not in there that I wish was, or some pages from, was this, and I really like this. This is X-Men Kitty Pryde Shadow and Flame. This was a mini series he did. I think the art in here is great. The coloring, I'm not crazy about. It's kind of got a weird palette to it. I think they were still trying to figure stuff out, but I think the art in here is great. This was drawn by Paul Smith. It was written by Akira Yashoda. Let's see, it was from 2006. So, and this is really cool. And this is where Kitty Pryde goes to Japan, and fights. You saw Silver Samurai. This is a cool story. I don't know if this, I got this very recently with the last 6 months, this trade. I got the singles when they came out, but I wanted the trade because my singles all get packed away in long boxes. This is really cool. Again, it's written by Akira Yashoda. If you know who that is, you know who that is. If you don't, you will probably never meet him at a con. Let's put it that way. But anyway, this is my review of Paul Smith's The Uncanny X-Men Artist Edition. If you're interested in Paul Smith, I recommend this. Again, like I said, IDW, Diamond owes IDW a lot of money, like millions of dollars. I forget the exact number, but tens of millions of dollars. So, you know, it could cause them to keep less stuff in print. So if there's an artist edition or you got your eye on, I would suggest you pick it up. That's why I got this one, certainly. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please let me know. I like it. Consider subscribing. If you have a comment, please feel free to comment below. I try and answer all the comments or whatever. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Good night.